welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. Now, this is going to be for a movie that I just picked up today, actually. I went out and I picked up a couple titles. But, and this is not one from the 70s or 80s like I've been doing recently. This actually came out in 2014, so it's a more recent movie. It's one that I have seen before. It's been a while. I've seen it once on Netflix back shortly after it first came out. It's one that I remember really enjoying, and the second time around, I enjoyed it just as much. I do have my issues with it, but they're kind of small. And I remember the first time I saw it, having very low expectations because it was part of a subgenre that I wasn't the biggest fan of. Had been done to hell, and done in a style that I wasn't the biggest fan of. Again, done to hell. That is a possession film done in the style of found footage. Got great reviews. Everyone was talking about it. So I was thinking, I'm sure it sucks, or I'm sure I'm not going to like it. But I would have to agree with all the positive notes. I did back then, I do now. I don't know if it's 91 on Rotten Tomatoes worthy, but it's still pretty good. It is 2014's The Taking of Deborah Logan. Now, this is a movie I've wanted to pick up for quite a while, ever since the first time I saw it. I think I saw it back in like 2015. Now, it was directed by Adam Robidell, who also directed Insidious: The Last Key and Escape Room. I only made it to Insidious 2. I didn't like Insidious 2, and the trailer for Escape Room really made me not interested at all. Yes, Bryan Singer is one of the producers. Just, yeah. I guess I feel like that has to be mentioned. Jill Larson, Ann Ramsey, Michelle Ang, Brett Gentile, Jeremy DeCarlos, Ryan Catrona is our cast. Now, Ann Ramsey I know she was in the 2001 Planet of the Apes, which I wasn't a fan of. She was also a supporting character in Season 3 of Dexter. She was Miguel Prado's rival DA. And one thing I will say, Deborah Logan, she was the woman in Shutter Island, which makes sense. And I guess Michelle Ang was in Fear the Walking Dead. Now, the thing about this is, I do think this is how you do found footage right, even though I feel like the gimmick is kind of lost, because it is one of those found footage movies where it looks like someone trying to make found footage. It looks like a movie done in the style of it. It has recognizable actors. So it's not like Blair Witch where it looks like something someone found. It does look like a lost amateur film. This does look more like a studio trying to make a found footage movie, which happens a lot. That's going to be the case with most found footage films. And if this was a worse movie, a movie I didn't like, then I would say that the recognizable actors further killed the illusion. But the actors all did a very good job, so I mean, even though it may dilute the illusion a little bit, it is well acted. It can carry you through the film more, like it kind of makes up for it. I just wanted to see if there's anyone else. Also, I have a really hard time suspending my disbelief with found footage. I mean, that's why I have a hard time with movies like Grave Encounters 1 and 2. I hate those two films. Here, there are a couple moments where it's just like, okay, that's really unexplainable. But again, I enjoy the film enough that those smaller moments don't really bother me. One of the biggest issues with found footage is actually believing why they're filming this. I mean, and I would have to say Paranormal Activity is the biggest culprit of that. Like, why are they filming this? Why does this need to be filmed? This really didn't have any excess fat or anything that didn't look important or anything that would make you wonder why this needed to be filmed. Which, I mean, Blair Witch has scenes like that, but it's explained why. You know, Heather explains why she's constantly filming. Here, it looks like everything in the film is important, so at least that's addressed. One of the things with found footage that really kind of turns me off to it, kind of tying in with the whole suspension of disbelief, is almost all of them being paranormal or possession. Which is why, and I mean, it's not a very good movie, but I was actually impressed by it. I was surprised by it up until the ending, of course. But The Last Exorcism. It was a possession movie that totally did something different, except for the ending. You know, a priest that debunks everything, find out this girl has mental illness, and then the ending. Here, though, it starts off as a documentary about Alzheimer's, which very interesting. And as the film goes on, they realize, okay, this isn't either it's not Alzheimer's or it's not just that. There's something else going on. There's some real freaky stuff going on with her, and you find out that it is possession. So, to me, it's just a little bit more believable. Like, this is more the found footage film that I can kind of get behind, or that I can find myself following and believing more. It's not just a crew following around an Alzheimer's patient. There are like documentary scenes, like interviews with doctors and clips of like CGI hospital programs kind of showing you how the effects of Alzheimer's on the brain. I'm sure some people would find this to be kind of slow, but you know, I think it builds the characters up. It really builds the suspense, builds the transformation. You really get to see the transformation of Deborah Logan, because she starts off, you know, she seems all well put together and proper, very sweet, maybe a little passive aggressive in how old fashioned she is, especially towards her daughter. You know, her daughter's a lesbian. There are a couple comments that Deborah makes. And then seeing her essentially turn into the Shutter Island lady. But, and yeah, there's some CGI in it, but I was already so into the film that the CGI didn't bother me. And plus, it's like, how else are you really going to make that work? There are some real effective scenes in this that would otherwise be ruined if it wasn't found footage. Because for me, one of the biggest rules of found footage is you can't have music, because then how could you sell the idea that it's real if it has a score behind it? So like kind of like in It Chapter 2, like they're just walking around the house, and in the background, in like the dark corridors, you just kind of see Deborah walking by for like a quick second. It's actually creepy. Also, this kind of made me think back to Blair Witch and why a lot of people don't like Blair Witch, but why I think it's effective. Let's see who it was that said it. Vincent Guastini, if I pronounce that correctly. the guy that did the special effects, he had a great time working with director Adam Robidell. He says that the two of them agreed on how much they should limit the amount of footage that shows her transformation up until the end to make it more believable. It's like, thank you. The less you see, the more believable, the more effective, the scarier it is. That's why Blair Witch works so well. You know, but you don't see the witch. Yeah. What you don't see is scary. 2016 Blair Witch, you get the witch and it looks stupid. So, someone actually said it. Unlike any other possession or paranormal films, you have someone that just up and fucking leaves. He literally says, yeah, fuck you both, and just drives off. Leaves. This doesn't have your typical found footage ending where everyone dies and the camera falls over. Essentially, a couple characters die, like supporting characters that really aren't part of the documentary crew or the family. Everything kind of goes how it's supposed to, more or less. And it just ends. Yeah, it does hint that the story's not over. Not really a sequel bait, but kind of like a nod that, oh, it's like the end, like a question mark type ending. But it doesn't have that, everyone dies, camera falls, eventually someone will find it, and it'll be released type ending. I know Bloody Disgusting said that this movie didn't add anything new, but some of those things alone is enough to really make this a standout found footage film. I do like the mystery, because it is this slow unravel as to who she's possessed by, because it's not a demon or the devil. She is possessed by somebody. And Deborah is trying to show her daughter. Her daughter, Sarah, is one played by Anne Ramsey. It's like she's trying to reach out and show through clues or hints as to who is possessing her and how to stop them, which I'll get into. And yeah, there's been some found footage even movies that aren't found footage, like one that always comes to mind, A Haunting in Connecticut, when that medium has all that like ectoplasm coming out of his mouth. It's like, I really can't, like, as soon as I see stuff like that, super out there, wild, like supernatural stuff, my brain just turns off and I'm like, I'm already out of the film. Here, there's a couple things like that. I mean, and like really early on, they're looking back at their footage because there's Mia, played by Michelle Ang. She's kind of the host of the documentary crew. Then there's Gavin and Lewis, I think his name was. And I guess the Logans are agreeing to do this because they're going to get paid. They'll be able to pay off doctors, and I guess the house is on the line. Everyone's really in need of money, and this documentary will help them. They're going back over the footage of the night before, and there's this shot in the kitchen of Deborah standing at the counter, and then it just like jumps to her standing on the counter, but the timestamp doesn't change, so it's literally like she teleports onto the counter. It's like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then there's a part like where a TV flies across the room and hits someone. It's very quick. Or towards the end when they try to burn something in the fireplace, and there's like this big explosion that blows everyone back. It's like, ah. But those moments are so few and far between that for me, it was easy to forgive. The thing that really pulls this movie along, scary wise, they're more atmospheric, I guess, like Blair Witch, and the climax of the film is very Blair Witch. Instead of a rundown house out in the woods, this is in a cave. But you have someone with the camera chasing someone or trying to keep up with someone, yelling their name. Camera's kind of going crazy. Which also, yeah, you get a lot of scenes like when all the lights are out and they only have like a flashlight or the camera light, and the camera's kind of going like it's more shakier than usual. I guess trying to give the effect that something's going on. That's a huge found footage trope. But it's mostly just Deborah doing something weird, like staring out the window and someone having to sneak up on her, ask if she's okay, knowing she's gonna whip her head around and scream or whatever. And some of the latter moments I thought did work, like uh, the camera guy that leaves, at one point he goes in this one room and there's a window that's nailed shut because Deborah keeps getting out at night, and he hangs a necklace with a cross on it. And when he stands upright again, Deborah's standing right next to him and says, "You're letting all my heat out," and then the window just rips open. I mean, stuff like that is okay. It's the really big explosive moments, I guess, normally would be flaws. I guess they're more so nitpicks than anything, because I do enjoy the film. But she keeps wanting to go out into the garden to dig, even if she's all the way down to just her underwear. She used to work as a switchboard operator, and one night she's sitting up in the attic at her switchboard naked. And these scenes are creepy as well because she's way at the end of the attic. It's all dark, and just the very faint sounds of her just kind of doing something as she's sitting there naked, just kind of doing her own thing, not knowing that she's being watched. I mean, that's pretty creepy. There were a couple scenes that did remind me of Wreck/Quarantine, like at the end when they have to sneak up on her in night vision. Reminds me of like the penthouse top floor apartment in Wreck and Quarantine, with that emaciated person's just walking around. But they figure out the switchboard hole that she keeps plugging the jack into. They check her records, and it is port 337. There is no 337, but someone does the trick with the charcoal and paper for the indentation. There's a name, Desjardins. It's spelled Disjardin, which I've heard that name before, but I guess they go by the French pronunciation, which I think is Desjardins. Because she also starts screaming French. And Sarah points out, oh, it was this case 30 years ago. There was this pediatrician who went missing, but he was suspected of killing 4 young girls, and believed to be in this some sort of ritual that if he killed 5, he'd be granted immortality. And it has something to do with snakes as well. Snakes are kind of a common theme or a motif throughout the film. And we get the idea that that's the entity that's possessing her. I guess I should say spoilers. Spoilers from here on out. But this is a found footage film that I do enjoy. I mean, Blair Witch, still my favorite. Cannibal Holocaust does not count. It's not a found footage film. It just inspired the genre. So Blair Witch is my favorite. Um, I do like both Wreck and Quarantine. I only say Quarantine because I like the aspect of rabies more than demonic possession, at least in found footage. Wreck 2 I liked. Cloverfield I liked. Yeah, I know that's not very believable, but it's supposed to be a big monster movie. So, but I thought Cloverfield was well made. And I like this. Oh, I was impressed by The Last Exorcism up until the ending. Other than that, I'm just not a fan of found footage. There's just... it's not that I dislike the style or the look of it, which I know is the case for some people. It's just... I've seen more that I've disliked more than I have liked. And same thing with modern paranormal and or possession films. These modern ones I'm really sick of, especially at the time this came out. But this does both found footage and possession, and I think it does a great job. It's well acted. It is more atmospheric than some of your other both found footage and possession films. Plenty of scenes of them having to walk up on Deborah, or her being in the background, or kind of shrouded in darkness, being creepy. She looks creepy. You know, I do like the transformation of her going from this, you know, sweet lady who looks well put together while having Alzheimer's to just descending into this Shutter Island lady. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it is one of the best found footage films. And yes, I have reviewed As Above, So Below. I thought it was okay. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But, so yeah, spoilers. Deborah also has a habit of harming herself. Like, she grabs hold of her throat, rips some skin out. She scratches her arm, rips some skin. She keeps hurting herself. She gets hospitalized. At this point, one of the cameramen leaves. And by now, they've kind of figured out, okay, it's this Desjardins guy. They know about his crimes, that he disappeared. But Deborah has said in a deep voice, like, "Murder," implying that she killed him. And that is this deep-seated memory that she's trying to uncover. And if they can help her uncover whatever it is that she's trying to dig up, pun intended, I guess, then maybe it will help pass the possession. Well, eventually, there's also this guy named Harris who's like a lifelong friend of Deborah. Sarah even calls him her dad at one point. He wants to get rid of the camera crew. Sarah says no. He shows up at one point and shoots all the windows out of the crew's van. But he shows up at the hospital to visit Deborah. She begs him to kill her. He goes to smother her with a pillow, and this is when we see the TV just kind of, very quick CGI, just, as soon as it hits him, it cuts to black. But then while he's being prepped in the hospital, Sarah comes in close, and he tells her, like, you know, you were going to be the fifth victim of Desjardins. Your mother killed him with her spade shovel, and I buried him. He's buried out back, underneath the statue. So Sarah and Mia and Lewis go back there to dig. They dig. They don't find a body, but they find her spade, so they know Deborah got to it first. They find a burlap sack in the attic that has a body in it. Bring it down to the main room to burn it. But, you know, snakes just start coming out of it. Eventually it burns, but then there's like that explosion as if as if like in any supernatural horror movie, like the Get Out kind of moment. Also, Deborah makes one attempt to abduct a young cancer patient girl from the hospital. She doesn't get very far. She gets subdued again, but then she breaks out of her restraints and kidnaps the child again, this time successfully. And like the scenes when she's strapped down and doing her like she does look pretty demonic. I mean, another demonic possession movie in a hospital that I thought sucked, and this was miles better, and this is how you do that right. And I don't even really remember what the film was about specifically. I have reviewed it, but The Devil Inside, one of the most boring found footage films I've seen. Oh, and that Harris guy also tells her that Desjardins would commit his murders and his rituals at this cave. So our three characters go up with a sheriff and a deputy. I think it's hinted that the sheriff and Sarah had some sort of thing at one point in the past, or they have that the sheriff has feelings for Sarah or something. But they get up to the cave. They find Deborah. This is at one point. Well, she even spits. I think it's acid because it gets in the deputy's eyes. And the one camera guy that's left has to leave with the sheriff. So it's just Mia and Sarah chasing Deborah through this cave. And that's where it's kind of Blair Witchy. Because you have Mia with the camera, the flashlight. She's yelling out to Sarah constantly. Kind of like when Heather was yelling for Mike in the house at Blair Witch. Blair Witch was much more effective, but I still like this film. There is the scene where they want to sneak up on Deborah and jab her with a needle it's got a sedative, I think. So it's like dead silent, and they're like sneaking out. It's night vision. Again, it kind of reminds me of the ending to Wreck and Quarantine. Of course, it doesn't work. And then there's the scene that I think everyone remembers. I mean, you can type in like Deborah Logan GIF on Google and this will pop up. Going with the motif of snakes, they hear them around this corner. And when they go around, Deborah's standing there with the girl in front of her, and her mouth is like dislocated like a snake, and she's got her whole head and mouth over the girl's head, like she's trying to swallow her whole, like a snake. And yeah, they break that up, and Deborah turns to scream. It's like a big, like CGI mouth. Thankfully, it's quick, and you don't get a lot of scenes like that. Just one quick CGI, which is forgivable. But they are able to give her the sedative. They do burn the body there. It explodes again, but Deborah then goes back to her old self. And then we get the epilogue where... And since I forgot most of this movie between first viewing and just now, I forgot how it ended, and I was thinking like, well, was it Alzheimer's all along as well? And that's why the possession was able to come in? Or was it never Alzheimer's? It was always possession, but they just started with Alzheimer's. And now that the possession is over, will she be completely cured? No, she still has Alzheimer's. It ends with, oh, because she also bit the throat out of a sheriff to get the girl out of the hospital. And yeah, it is kind of a downer ending, but it's still far more positive than most found footage films. Where, you know, she was charged with the murder of the sheriff, the female friend sheriff of Sarah, and the attempted murder of a deputy. But she was found too incompetent to stand trial, so she goes to a hospital for the rest of her life. At this point, she's completely catatonic. I mean, Alzheimer's completely taken over. The girl, Kara, is now complete a remission. And it ends with her on her birthday, is the news. And the news guy asks her, what she has planned for the future. She says it's a secret, and then gives like a sinister smile to the camera, showing that the ritual has been completed, and now Desjardins' soul is in her. So not really setting itself up for a sequel, but just kind of showing that evil won, evil's continuing, but still not ending on the complete cliche downer note that most found footage films do, where everyone dies and the camera falls. So, I mean, it does deserve some credit. It does do some newer things. I mean, one guy says screw this and leaves. Not everyone dies. In fact, everyone in the main cast of, the subjects and the crew, they all live. It is more built on atmosphere than it is quick, loud scares. Which, yeah, there are some found footage films that even though there is no score, they still find a way to just have loud jump scares constantly. And yeah, there's some in this where there'll be like a loud bang or a thud in another room, but and mostly it is just these scenes like this one here with Deborah and the little girl in the elevator back to, and the doctor having to like sneak up on her and take the girl by the hand. Just these more suspenseful, tense, atmospheric scares. And I really like the surrounding story of, it being about Alzheimer's, surrounding around mental illness rather than, oh, here's a person that just started acting weird one day. Obviously, it's possession. No, they start with Alzheimer's, and then all this weird shit starts happening, and then they figure it out. Which was one reason why I like The Last Exorcism. This family was desperate, but then they found out it was mental illness, then the shitty ending happened. Which is why I hated the ending to Hereditary. We could have had an awesome, well-made, perfectly acted movie about mental illness, a horror movie about mental illness, but then it became that stupid cult ending. So yeah, I definitely think this is one of the more effective, well-made, well-acted found footage and possession films. Yeah, it doesn't look... The illusion of found footage is kind of weak. It doesn't have that very amateur look to it. It does look like a studio film making something in that style, but with a couple recognizable actors. So the illusion isn't very strong, but everything else on a technical level is so well done that and any other flaw I have with it is pretty forgivable. So yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite, and I would say one of the best found footage films. The Taking of Deborah Logan. So yeah, I did buy quite a few random titles today that I'm excited to get to. Maybe I'll do a DVD update video. I don't know. But that's it for Deborah Logan, and thank you for watching.